Fear is our deepest and strongest emotion, and the one which best lends itself to the creation of nature-defying illusions. Today in the show, to prepare you for the upcoming Netflix series, we are going to be talking about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The story begins October 31st, Westbridge, Massachusetts. We see Edward Theodore Spellman, High Priest of the Church of the Night, waiting. This man has brought his lord Satan to the physical realm multiple times in his life, but the task he has to do tonight fills even his dark heart with dread. The clock strikes midnight, and behind him appears a large group of women, sisters of the Church of the Night, and they are ready to carry out this dark task. They have to take a child away from her mother. Now, this apparently was a long time coming, yet when Edward goes to collect the child from her mother, who should be in a room saying goodbye, the mother and the child have fled into the night. You see, this woman knows the truth. She knew Edward was a witch, and Edward knew that by marrying a mortal woman, he was breaking witch law. Yet an exception was made, and they went ahead. Her plan is just to get to a church, some form of consecrated ground where they will be safe. But this was a terrible mistake. Witches are the woods, they are the sky, and they are the night. There was no way she was going to escape. She tries to cling onto the baby, but when she looks down, the child has been replaced by a rag doll, and the baby is in Edward's arms. You see, she would never have been able to give birth without the witch's intervention, so she made a pact. They would make her fertile, and in exchange, she would have to give up her firstborn. She has permission to have as many babies as she wants after this one, but this firstborn, this witch child, must go with the sisters of the Church of the Night. But when Diana threatens to tell the whole world about Edward and the Church of the Night, he uses a spell to break her mind and has her put in the Hearthstone Clinic for the mentally unwell, where they lobotomize her. We will never know for sure if Diana had any other family. Edward claims it was just him. As he leaves the hospital, Hilda and Zelda are there to confirm that the church is not compromised. And when he confirms this, he picks up his daughter, the witch child, Sabrina. 6 years later to the day, it's Sabrina's birthday, and she is having a telekinetic tantrum. Her father has failed once again to come home for her birthday, and this has broken her young heart. Hilda and Zelda are quick to discipline the child, telling her that she is much too clever to be having a tantrum like this, and she is a Spellman child and she should start acting like one. And they make her state the rule of telekinesis. Not in the house. Sabrina says that she's sorry, but she was just so upset over her father not being there for her birthday, and Hilda and Zelda tell her that maybe just because her father isn't there and he didn't call doesn't mean he forgot, it means he just can't. You see, what Sabrina doesn't know is, as punishment for breaking witch law, Sabrina's father has been turned into a tree. But her aunts do promise Sabrina that he will return to the coven and Sabrina as soon as he can. The aunts decide to cheer Sabrina up by giving her her birthday present, and when Sabrina opens it, she's like, "Oh, what is it? Is it a puppy?" And this kind of makes Hilda feel even more guilty, because she's like, "Oh, maybe we should have gotten her a dog," and Zelda is like, "Look, every witch needs a familiar, a protector, and dogs are just not smart enough to fill that job." When Sabrina opens the box, it is a talking cat inside, and the cat's name is Salem. This cat was apparently once a human boy, not a witch, and at one point he was turned into a cat for trying to reenact the Book of Revelation. The 4th of September 1962, Sabrina's first day of 6th grade, Sabrina comes home crying. She says to her aunts, "Am I a half-breed?" And the aunts are shocked at this question, because this was a secret that was kept away from Sabrina, something that she should never have found out about. They ask her who told her this disgusting lie, because they want to go and punish this person. Salem even wants to scratch the child's eyes out. Sabrina tells her aunts it was a girl called Adeline Hubbard. Apparently this girl told Sabrina that she was a half-breed that would never be powerful and never know true love. She told Sabrina that her dad married a human woman and he got banished, and that's why her father isn't around anymore, and that's why her mother's dead. This makes something in Hilda snap, and in the time it takes for a spell to be uttered, Hilda appears before young Adeline Hubbard. When the child looks up at Hilda and smiles, confirming who she is, Hilda turns into a giant spider and punishes the child. You see, all Hubbards in the witching world have a huge fear of spiders. Now, when Hilda returns home, Zelda reveals that they are considering leaving Westbridge. Now, the two aunts really don't want to leave Sabrina's side to talk about this plan, so they communicate telepathically. Zelda points out that it would be easier for Sabrina to grow up around humans because she will be the most powerful of her kind around humans, whereas if she grew up around witches, she's a half-witch. There's no guarantee that she's going to be all that powerful. And that's when Sabrina interjects and reveals she can hear this whole conversation. And the aunts are a little bit shocked at this, but they reveal that it just means that she's becoming more powerful anyway. And shortly after this, they move into a funeral home across the road from a cemetery in the town of Greendale. In the summer of 1964, Sabrina comes home from school and she says that she's planning on going swimming, but that's when she meets her cousin Ambrose from England for the first time, and he's coming to stay with her. When they go up to his room, he reveals that he's being homeschooled by Hilda and Zelda for now because he's actually being punished. He actually took one of his mortal prefect's hands away and then restored the hand, but because of this he outed himself as a warlock in the process. High Priest Crowley wanted to send him away to the Nether Realm as punishment, but Hilda and Zelda interjected and had him come and live with them for rehabilitation. It's also worth noting that Ambrose has two snake familiars, Nag and Nagania. They claim to be children of the snake god Glyson. Salem hates the two of them instantly, and Ambrose then tells Sabrina that he and his familiars really do appreciate the drama in their lives. And Sabrina says, well, in that case, I feel sorry for you because nothing ever happens in Greendale. A few months pass and it's Sabrina's first day of high school. And Ambrose actually encourages Sabrina to go to high school with a glamour on so she can be the most beautiful girl in the school. Now, a glamour is a very, very simple vanity spell that can make you look however you want to look. But witches often use it for protection to look a different way so they could blend in more easily with society. Ambrose even says to Sabrina that she should at least change her hair to a different color, but Sabrina says she likes her hair even though it's turning white. Salem eventually walks in and tells her, you're going as yourself, we moved to this town where nothing happens so you could unapologetically be yourself. So Sabrina goes to school as herself and Salem stands by the fact that glamours are just for crones. But Ambrose says he was encouraging Sabrina to use a glamour for her own protection. High school is hell on earth. And sure enough, shortly after Sabrina gets to high school, she meets a girl called Roz. And she instantly asks, is it true that you live in the funeral home and that your parents are dead? And Sabrina just says, yes and yes. And the girl keeps throwing questions at Sabrina, but not really caring about her response, which is fine because Sabrina stopped listening. And that's when something else catches her attention. A boy named Harvey Kinkle. As he passes by, he compliments Sabrina's white hair, and that's when Roz steps in between them and says, hands off, Harvey Kinkle is mine. Now Sabrina goes home and she talks to Ambrose about this and asks if he knows of any spells that will make Harvey fall in love with her. But Salem is like, this is wrong and you know it. Your aunts would be against it, plus it's against witch law for witches to consort with mortals. But Sabrina says, at this point, she knows her mother was a mortal and her father was a witch. She knows it for sure. And she likes to believe that they're out there together somewhere, just happy. And she wants to believe that they'll come back for her one day. And Salem sort of keeps silent and says that he's still against this, not wanting to reveal the truth to Sabrina. So Ambrose and Sabrina start working on a honey jar love spell that was taught to him by a Mexican witch named La Saracho. Now the spell is actually fairly easy, it's just a case of following one step after another. And Salem actually does say midway through the spell, don't you want Harvey to like you for you? And Sabrina says, this is me, I'm a teenage witch. This is what I do. I'm unapologetically being myself by doing this spell on Harvey. And sure enough, the next day at school, Harvey meets up with Sabrina, the two get to talking, and by the end of that conversation, the two of them are going out on a date that weekend. Meanwhile in Riverdale, two young witches named Betty and Veronica try to summon a demon. Now they just want to summon a succubus to settle their rivalry over a boy called Archie. but in the process they accidentally summon Madame Satan and set her free from the capital city of Hell. Now, all demons at one point used to be alive on Earth, so this demon consumes a pregnant doe and her unborn calf to sustain her for a while. Her memories of a previous life start to come back to her. She has the name Edward stuck in her head. She was meant to marry this man, but he left her. He left her for a mortal woman named Diana. This is why she took her own life and she ended up being tied to the capital city of Hell. But now she's free, she's on the mortal plane, and she wants revenge. But before she can begin, she needs a new face. So she hides in the waters of a pond for an entire year. After emerging, she makes her way to a sleepaway camp and she begins to sing, and if one of the girls awakes, she would steal their face. But all of them stayed fast asleep. So she finds the prettiest girl and just steals her face. She then makes her way onto the road, waits for a truck to come by, and tells a man driving by that she's cold and she's scared and she can't remember who she is and she needs help. At this point, all of this is lies. They begin to drive away and she could instantly sense this man didn't want to help her. He had his own motives. So she decides that she's going to have some fun with this man. She tells him that she can sense the 47 other women that he's hurt over the years. And she tells him they're speaking to her and want her to do the same to him. And the next thing we see is Madame Satan riding the truck with the dead body of the man next to her. She eventually makes her way to New England, Massachusetts, and listens to the wind beneath the hanging trees. You see, these hanging trees are sacred for witches and reveal secrets to them, and the wind whispers to her, Westbridge. And when she goes to Westbridge, she quickly finds her love, Edward, trapped inside of a tree. Now, trapping a witch like Edward would have been no easy feat. He was incredibly powerful. It would have taken either two powerful witches or an entire coven. She started to recite a spell to free Edward's bones, to free him from this purgatory. But that's when she begins to remember. You see, she and Edward used to walk along the beach and he would recite Annabel Lee to her. But this just reminded her, Edward abandoned her. He abandoned her for a mortal woman. He abandoned her for a mortal woman named Diana. So she summons the fires of hell, destroying the tree and in turn destroying any hope that Edward had of being revived. She then uses the cinders of the tree to find where the mortal was and quickly finds her way to the Hearthstone Clinic. She uses her magic to brainwash all the staff at the clinic into believing that she is Diana Spellman's long-lost sister and wants to speak to her. When she meets Diana in her mentally incapacitated state, she tells her to imagine a place with no light, no warmth, no love, no nothing. Because that's the place she's been. And that place is hell. It's not literal hell. We then flash back to the last moments that this woman and Edward spent together. They were at a zoo and she thought it was going to be like a romantic date. She was a powerful witch named Iola and Edward was a powerful witch from the Spellman family. And it was almost like a match made in heaven in her eyes. But that's when he tells her he's met someone else. It's a mortal woman and the council have already approved this exception on the grounds that she bears a child for him who would be his future vessel. She was disgusted. Not only is she being replaced, she's being replaced by a mortal, something witches view as like dogs. Mortals are insignificant in witches' eyes. How could she be replaced with a mortal? So she casts a spell and teleports herself into the lion's pit before feeding time and commits suicide by being consumed. And that's when she finds herself in hell. And while she's in hell, the only thing she can say to herself is, if I ever meet this mortal woman, what will I do? Back in the present day though, she looks at Diana and it's clear to her that Edward has wronged her too. So the only gift she's going to give Diana is mercy. And she walks away and quickly changes her mind. She approaches Diana again and tells her that Edward probably made arrangements so she'd never leave this place. She must be unaware of what's even happening right now. So she gives her the gift of mental clarity, the ability to be aware of the fact that she is trapped in this prison. Her mind has essentially been restored, but the doctors will never let her leave. As Iola leaves thinking her work is done, the nurse at the front desk asks how Sabrina is doing. When Iola asked, "Who's Sabrina?" The nurse is like, oh, you know, Mr. Spellman and Diana's daughter, I haven't seen her for ages. And then the nurse tells Iola where Sabrina is and who she's living with. The following Monday, Iola makes her way to Greendale and instantly starts to cause chaos. Meanwhile, Sabrina starts to have a nightmare. There's a woman chasing her in her dream, but she quickly realizes it's her own mother that's chasing her. Her mother tells her that she tried to protect her from her father and his sisters, but now someone is coming for her. The devil's concubine, the queen of hell, and she wants blood. At first, Sabrina thinks she means Rosalina, and her mother tells her no, not her, although she should be careful of Rosalina because she is not as she seems. But the real danger right now is her father's first love. The dream cuts off when Sabrina is shocked awake by banging branches on her window. She goes and transforms the branches into vines because vines are a lot more quieter than branches. But as she's doing this, she's still half asleep and the dream fades. And by the time the next morning comes around, Sabrina's completely forgotten the details of the dream. But the next morning, the aunts note something is wrong. The milk has turned far earlier than it's supposed to, and this is a terrible omen. And there was also a murder at the town's local bar last night, which is something that never happens in Greendale. Ambrose notes that Sabrina seems off today, but she just says, oh, I had a dream and I can't remember it, that's all. Across town, Iola has found a place to stay, and she asks about the local high school. Meanwhile, at the local high school, Sabrina is auditioning for Bye Bye Birdie. Sabrina has decided to sing Anne Margaret's number title song, which was made for the movie, which some of the other girls laugh at because it's not even in the actual musical. Little do they know, Sabrina is a witch, so Sabrina actually learned the song directly from Anne Margaret herself the previous week, because Anne Margaret is also a witch and is close with Hilda and Zelda. Everyone is so captivated with Sabrina's singing that no one notices the crow fly in, observe Sabrina, and then leave and go and report in to Iola. The crow, up until last night, had actually been a human who was involved with the murder that happened that previous night. And the crow tells Iola everything from Sabrina's school to her relationship with Harvey to the other girls gossiping about Sabrina. Everything. That Tuesday night, Evelyn Gardenia, head of choir and drama at Sabrina's school, goes and takes herself on a date. She likes going to the picture house and watching romance movies. She sits alone as the movie begins, but that's when Iola comes and joins her. And rather than paying attention to the movie this time, she and Iola spend the whole time gossiping like schoolgirls, just about small things like the weather, love life, that kind of deal. At the end of the movie, Iola borrows a handkerchief from Evelyn, and Iola does think to herself, in another lifetime, the two of them could have been very good friends. But she has to use the handkerchief to cast a spell that will put Evelyn into an eternal sleep. And by that Wednesday morning, the news hit the school. Evelyn Gardenia had a stroke and is now in a coma and will not be returning to the school. So that day, a new teacher joins the school going by the name Miss Porter, but to us, it's clearly Iola. The next chapter starts off with a flashback. Hilda and Zelda are basically telling Sabrina in this flashback what it means if she fails the baptism. You see, all witches must be baptized into the Church of the Night, and if they join the church, they become one of Satan's handmaidens. But if they don't join the church, in Sabrina's case, she'll turn mortal because she's half mortal, and over time her powers will fade. But in exchange, it does mean she'll be allowed to experience true love from a mortal. In Sabrina's present day, she's walking down the hallway with her now boyfriend Harvey when Miss Porter calls her over, and Harvey tells her he'll meet her in the car. She tells Sabrina that she found Miss Gardenia's casting notes for Bye Bye Birdie, and the person set to play Kim, the leading girl, and be partnered with Harvey, who's going to play the leading boy, is between Sabrina and Rosalina. And Miss Porter is like, well, I have a feeling the two of us would get along much better than me and Rosalina. Do you know anything about her? I don't. And that's when Sabrina gossips about Rosalina, saying that she made Miss Gardenia's life a living hell by being a diva. This convinces her that Sabrina will play Kim and the two of them will be spending a lot of time together. When Sabrina goes out to the car to tell Harvey the good news, the only reason he's happy about this is that it means that the two of them will get to make out in front of the entire school. And then she gets into his car and he tries to pressure her into sleeping with him, and Sabrina's like, I can't, because what he doesn't know is that in order for her to do the baptism, she has to be pure of mind and pure of body. so that means she has to be a virgin. In fact, when she asked her aunt Hilda about this, Hilda was like, "You are a 15-year-old girl, you are far too young to be thinking about this. Is it this mortal boy? Is this mortal boy pressuring you?" And at the time, Sabrina was like, "No, it's not Harvey, I'm 15. All the girls my age are doing it. I'm the only one who hasn't." So back with Harvey, he actually does agree to stop pressuring her because clearly she's not gonna give way. And she even has to tell him she can't see him tomorrow on her birthday because she has a family thing. Little does he know, it's her baptism into the Church of the Night. Iola's crow reports into her, and she tells the crow to go into the woods and look for the altar of the Church of the Night. Meanwhile, back at Sabrina's home, it's the wee hours of the morning and she's so nervous about her baptism. She has to fast for 24 hours, she has to light a candle every hour on the hour. Once daybreak hits, she's not allowed to speak again until dark. And then on top of all of that, there's Harvey. After tomorrow night, the two of them can't be together. And Ambrose just tells her, if it's meant to be, it will be. If it's forever, they'll find a way. To cheer Sabrina up, Ambrose shows her her baptism gift from her aunts, so long as she promises to act surprised when they give this gift to her. And it's Sabrina's first broom. And the fact that she'll be able to fly after the baptism more than convinces her to go through with it. The next day at school, obviously Sabrina is absent, so Miss Porter and Harvey begin to talk. She tells Harvey that she overheard a conversation with Rosalina saying that apparently Sabrina goes into some of the woods at night and does strange things there. Apparently she meets up with a man. But Sabrina's baptism is a particularly special one because, as we find out in a flashback back to 1962, Zelda reveals that not only does Sabrina's baptism happen on her birthday, which is incredibly rare, it happens on a blood moon at the peak of Samhain. On the night of the baptism, Sabrina puts her dress on and she has to ride side saddle on a goat through the sky into the woods, then step into a blue fire. After this, she's taken to the hollow where they dance under the blood moon. Following this, the Queen of the Sabbath arrives on a black stag, and she has Sabrina receive the unholy communion. Following this, Sabrina must give a blood sacrifice, the goat she rode in on. At first, she falters because she's never taken an animal's life before. She really doesn't know if she can do it, but she manages to push through, and after this is covered in blood. This allows the goat to be reborn as Satan on earth, and he presents his book to her, and as Sabrina is about to write her name in it and cast her life away, Harvey appears at the edge of the hollow and he calls out Sabrina's name. This shocks Sabrina and all of the witches, and Sabrina just tells him to run, knowing that the witches will take his life. Now, this isn't actually the first time Harvey's had to run for his life through the woods. One time, when he was very young, he found a stash of porn in the woods, and it turned out it belonged to a gang of local thugs. He actually stole the porn and ran for his life home, and nothing ever happened after that. But as Harvey's running this time, he realizes he left Sabrina back there. What were they doing to her? He just doesn't understand. She was covered in blood. And when he turns around, there he sees Sabrina and she's okay. He begs for her forgiveness and she's like, "It's fine, they can't hurt us anymore. We're safe. Now kiss me and everything will be all right." But something isn't right. Something's demonic about her voice. But he can't resist. He goes in and kisses her. And this being reveals its true form, that of a witch. Meanwhile, the real Sabrina is being punished by the Queen of the Sabbath. She's saying she didn't bring Harvey there. She was just as surprised as everyone else. But she's not being listened to. She's being told that she will have to face the wrath of the council. The whole Spellman family will. And Sabrina's like, "Fine, I'll face the council. Just let me help." And she breaks free, hurting the Queen of the Sabbath in turn. Sabrina runs through the forest looking for Harvey, trying to save his life. All the possibilities are racing through her mind. Did he follow her because he didn't trust her? No, that couldn't have been it, right? He trusted her. And what would happen when she found him? They'd have to run away from Greendale and live their life out together around a ring of salt. But when she finds Harvey, he's already dead, consumed by a witch. And in that moment she faints and has a vision of what her life would have been if she had chosen not to be baptized. They would have been the ideal couple. Prom king and queen, married, children, moved to the city, then moved back to the country. But because she chose to become baptized, that vision turns to darkness. When Sabrina wakes up, she thinks it was all a dream, but she quickly finds out that no, all of that really happened, and Harvey is dead, and the council are now working hard to cover up Harvey's death. When Sabrina says to her aunts, "Why didn't you help me save Harvey?" they say, "Because the Dark Lord needed blood. You didn't sign your name in the book in time. You got distracted. So it was either your blood or Harvey's." And they would have much rather it been Harvey's. Over the next few days, Sabrina never smiles, she rarely talks, and she cries herself to sleep at night. And at school, she has to act as if she knows nothing when she knows the truth. Even kids from Riverdale come to Greendale to help look for Harvey, and that's when Iola actually reveals to Betty and Veronica that she is alive and kicking, and the two girls actually leave the town somewhat traumatized. The main source of Sabrina's guilt isn't that she'll never get to live out this ideal romantic life, it's that his parents will never know the truth. Even if the council managed to frame it so they get some form of closure, they'll never know the truth. And just everything around Sabrina reminds her of that, every tiny little insignificant thing. When it's finally revealed to Sabrina that the council have framed 3 men that have done countless unspeakable things in their life and hurt so many people for the murder of Harvey, it's still not enough for her. She just feels so guilty. When Mr. and Mrs. Kinkle come to the school to empty out Harvey's locker, Harvey's mother pulls Sabrina aside and reveals to her that Harvey was going to propose to her that Saturday. And Sabrina runs away, crying, and hides in the bathroom. And that's when Miss Porter approaches Sabrina and reveals to her she knows a way to bring Harvey back. And that's where the story ends. So I know this ended on a cliffhanger. The next 4 issues are the start of like the next story in the series. There's a total of 8 issues in the series. There should have been a 9th. The story should have kept going. It went on hiatus and just never came out of hiatus. It was supposed to come out of hiatus April this year and just never did. We don't know why, and it probably never will because, you know, there's an upcoming Netflix series and you'd think they'd update us on it, but they just haven't. Isn't that fun? In this video, I covered issues 1 to 4. Please let me know if you want me to cover the other 4. But if you want to support the series, please do. Please go and show Archie Comics, hey, we want to see how this series finishes, because the series sold ridiculously well, but clearly not well enough for it to get a continuation. As for the story, I love it. I really love it. Now keep in mind, I was actually raised in occultism and mysticism, and I will say, this is really inaccurate. This is not what occultism is like or about, and that's fine. I'm used to that. Like, Harry Potter is also an inaccurate interpretation of occultism. It's fine. It's not trying to be accurate. This is very much occultism through a Christian, or at very least an Abrahamic lens, and that's okay. I kind of like seeing that. I like seeing how the other half views us. And as much as I really didn't get into him in this video, Ambrose to me is by far the most interesting character. And I'm not just saying that because he's from the UK, like, he's English, I'm Scottish, there's a difference. I would honestly be happy if Archie just published a spin-off Ambrose comic. Like, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina doesn't come back, but we get the Chilling Adventures of Ambrose. I'd be down with that. But I do want the series to continue because I have so many questions, like, okay, Sabrina put her name in the book and then she didn't sign it. Does that mean she has to do the baptism again? Or is her powers just going to fade for sure now? Or is she going to keep her powers? Is something else going to happen? Like, I just want to know the conclusion to that, because there is no conclusion to that. Like, I know it's common for horror to leave a few loose ends, but leaving one that big is not okay. As I mentioned, there is the Netflix show coming out. I think it comes out like in a week, maybe less now. And I accidentally watched the trailer. If you know me, you know I don't watch trailers, but I ended up accidentally watching this trailer. Things happened. I really try not to judge things based upon trailers, and so I will still be watching this, and I'm going to reserve all of my judgment for the actual series. But judging by the trailer, because I kind of have to at least acknowledge it, I'm worried because it seems much lighter in tone than the comic. The comic's very dark, and visually it's not giving me the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it's giving me Riverdale. And by that I don't mean Riverdale looks ugly or anything. No, I like the way Riverdale looks. It looks very pretty. But at the same time, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is like beautiful watercolor mixed with these experimental, dirty colors. And I'm not getting that. I'm getting the cleanliness that comes with Riverdale. You know, Riverdale, I always call it dark Glee because it does look like a darker version of Glee. And that's what I'm getting from this series as well. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want something that looks very, very pretty, but dirty. I want something that just gives me wow levels of experimentation, something that does something I've never seen before visually. And I should be able to pick that up from a trailer. And I just haven't. So I'm incredibly worried. But that worry comes from a place of, I want this series to be good and I want it to reflect the comic I love. I don't want it to be a one-to-one adaptation of the comic. I just want it to look better, or at least different, because this doesn't look bad. I just want it to look different. But my main hope from the series is that people will like it and go out and buy the comic, and by buying the comic, Archie start back up the series again, and I get to talk about more Sabrina, because she's the only Archie character I actually know anything about. Who's Betty, Veronica? I don't know. I barely know what Archie is. I don't watch Riverdale. It's on Netflix in the UK. To me, it just looks like dark Glee, like I said, and I didn't like Glee. I'm sorry, Riverdale fans. It just looks like dark Glee. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna stress this again. I do not think Riverdale looks bad. I think it just doesn't look very experimental, because it doesn't want to look experimental. It needs to look relatable. It's based off of Archie, and that's fine. So please go and support the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'll have links down below to where you can buy the comics for yourself. Riverdale's fine. It doesn't need me. It's fine. Riverdale is fine. It's fine. It looks fine. He's fine. In that wrestling singlet, he is fine! But it's fine. It doesn't need me. It's fine. It's super effective! Okay guys, that is it for today. So what did you think of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina? Please let me know in the comments down below. Also don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe to all of my social links. Check out my Patreon if you want to support the show. I do videos like this quite frequently. If you don't want to check out my Patreon, I also have a PayPal donation link. Seriously, any donations you can give really helps out the show. But for now, my name is Faust. This has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.